I previously touched on the origins of the term Mandingo, and I want to continue. I want to continue this series for a couple of more episodes sporadically, or as I feel like getting into it. So this is gonna be in that same realm. It's gonna cover another. What's going to cover is propaganda further. In this regards to our demonization, uh, the overt sexist presentation of black men and shit, molded to for whatever need and shit, but always presented negatively to the public and the world at large, the diaspora, I would say. This is quite damaging, and we have to be vigilant about this. We have to take some agency in reclaiming our image on the world stage. I think it's important, even if only a couple of people see this, maybe I don't care, if under 100 people see it, I don't care. Somebody's gonna, take to this and, run with it, I guess. But I think it's important that we start working on taking our image back and taking it out of the hands of people with less than stellar intentions, for lack of a better term. I like to apologize. Sometimes I get caught up in my own rhetoric. So that being said, I'm gonna do a deep cut. I'm gonna do a deep cut episode or whatnot. This is gonna be an episode I produced 2 years ago, but I think it's just as relevant. It's timeless actually. It's just a commentary that I did in 2020. So that being said, let's move ahead, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'd like to hear from you in the comment section. Thank you very much.
I was a terror since the public school era. Bathroom passes, cutting classes, squeezing asses. Smoking blunts was a daily routine since 13. A chubby nigga on the scene. I used to have the tray deuce and the deuce in my bubble goose. Now I got the Mac in my knapsack, lounging black, smoking sacks up in action sidekicks with my sidekicks, rocking fly kicks. I want to talk about an experience I had in 1995. I was on again, off again, dating or really actually just hanging out with this girl from DC. She was a basic female. I gotta admit that. If I was a basic male, she was almost a vanilla clone of a black woman. And I don't say that to be mean. It's just an adequate assessment of her as a human being based on what I knew of her at that time. We would go out and hang out. We go to movies, do things, and she was a stone brick wall of a woman. And during that time, I was working a dead end job and, just navigating the streets of Los Angeles. And, I figured, maybe over time, but maybe she'll warm up to me, stupidly enough. Yeah. So we go out to movies, right? And she picked a movie. I think one or two times I picked a movie, or she just inserted herself into my itinerary for that evening. But this particular day, she wanted to go see a movie, and she talked to me like it was a date or something. So I put on a nice shirt and some slacks, and went to meet her at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood. And when I got there, she was dressed kind of like she worked for a moving company or something. And I want to give you an idea of what she looked like. She was what you would call a red bone, kind of thick, almost like face, kind of like Alicia Keys. I would say like a basic version of Alicia Keys, sans makeup. And she wanted to go see this movie, right? And I had heard about the movie, but I didn't really think anything of it because I was kind of busy in my own life, and I just kind of get tunnel vision, in my own life. A lot of times I'm just really a hard worker and everything, even though I was doing a dead end job, just doing like security. So yeah, like I said, I put on some nice clothes and everything, and Was presentable. Even put on some cologne. And I went there, and she looked like she was just got through working for the moving company or something, and she had just did a shift. She looked like crap, in my opinion. It wasn't no date once I saw her. And the movie she wanted to go see was Waiting to Exhale. And I was just like, okay, whatever. It's like an R-rated black movie. And this is during the time when they were bringing out these black movies, trying to capitalize on the urban dollar. At that time, it was like a second resurgence. After it was part of the whole. The studios wanted like their own Spike Lee thing or their own. They wanted to just get black money. So I went in to see the movie, and I didn't realize the cultural impact of the movie as related to black women. And mostly, this movie was culturally significant for a lot of basic females. When I went into the theater, the entire theater was composed of mostly black women, like big, giant, fat black women, just angry looking black women, all kinds of black women. And then you had me in there. You had a couple of guys in there who didn't give a shit, like some thugs, a couple of regular guys, definitely a lot of pookies and ray-rays, as they like to say these days in 2020. And oddly enough, a few feet away from me was a nuclear Caucasian family. There was like a mother, father, a son, and a daughter. Like the kids were little kids. And I think they were all blonde. They were sitting in the middle. It was just the weirdest thing to see in an R-rated movie. So I started watching the movie, obviously. I don't know if anybody who listen to this, anybody's just seen Waiting to Exhale knows this about four from really successful to just kind of trifling women. They have relationship problems and troubles. You got like a mammy. You got like I don't know what you call her, like a wife, like a power wife, a power couple that is now separated because the husband's dating his white secretary, which sets this woman off on a rampage, just like Angela Bassett, just mugging the camera. Back in the day, I really felt like she was a great actress. I think she's a good actress now, but was overrated in the past because of this. And she made a career out of playing like these tortured, angry women, almost to cartoonish extremes. And, after a while, you're watching the movie, you see Angela Bassett in there. They got Whitney Houston in there too. And I kind of felt like she was out of place because I always saw Whitney Houston as a princess, a pop princess, which she was. And I didn't know about her drug troubles at the time. I don't think anyone did. And just watching the movie, and Angela Bassett's just going off and, all this rhetoric and going to the guy's job and attacking the guy, attacking his Caucasian girlfriend. Then you got Whitney Houston. She's having problems nailing down the guy. And it's like, I forgot who the guy was. It's like some older guy. They're like, you couldn't even see Whitney Houston be on. They couldn't even be bothered to pick a guy that looked like somebody Whitney Houston would screw, from that perception at that time. Because as you know well, later she got with Bobby Brown. And that would raise a bunch of questions. Rest in peace, Whitney. And then you had Layla Roshan, who was the street level girl who was screwing all these guys. And mostly, I think she was screwing some guy played by Leon. He was the epitome of what you now call a Pookie and a Rayway. It's like a trifling dude. He just had the good D. It's like pounding her down. And then he was just like screwing. I think at one point he got her pregnant. And then she was dating the Bubba Shrimp guy from the Forrest Gump movie. And he was a progressive drug addict. So she made bad choices in the movie. And they had a really funny scene where he wants her to go somewhere with him, and he's high and on drugs, and she's on a balcony, and they play Romeo and Juliet music, and she actually throws an orange and hits him in the head after breaking up with him, and he walks away and calls her like a bitch or something, and she throws like this orange and pops him in the head. That's hilarious. Then they showed her going out with a fat guy, a supposed non-select guy who I guess he had a small penis, and he was doing this thing on her, and then she started faking it. And I'm just like, man, this movie is like really insulting to black men. It's insulting. So I was like getting mad, while I was sitting there with this basic female who I definitely wasn't sleeping with. And, I tried to be cool about it, but I was like get really angry. I think I made like a loud noise, and I saw like several sisters look over at me like they were going to get up and like beat on me or something. They were going to attack me. They were giving me a mad look because I made a noise. And then I looked over and the family was there, and it's like they didn't know what they were going to see. and they looked really like they were stuck there. They were afraid to get up and walk out this white family. I just found it the most hilarious thing. So I decided I wasn't going to say anything, right? Even though I was pissed off about the movie. And the movie did denigrate black men. It didn't have one decent black guy in there that they just saw. They even pulled a bait and switch. They showed Wesley Snipes as a potential love interest for Angela Bassett, and she's talking to him, and then he admitted that he had a white wife who was dying of cancer, so she couldn't say nothing about that. And I was just like, shit. And they kept intercutting all these scenes in the movie with these women at a bonfire, like in a canyon or something, or on a beach, and they look like witches. And it's like, what the fuck is this movie about? It's just about how bad black men are and the righteous anger of black women. They didn't take any responsibility for their situations. You know, the one chick got pregnant, and only after she got pregnant did she want to break up with the guy. And they even show her at the end around the bonfire, and these women got bottles of champagne, and there she is with a pregnant belly jumping around. And I was like, what is the fuck kind of clarion call is this to the public? And I was looking around, I saw these women, and none of them were smiling watching this shit, except for the scene where the crackhead got hit with the orange. I was just like, what the fuck? What is this shit? So I was very angry. And then on top of it, when I left the theater, my basic female, who had all of the personality of Leonard Nimoy, we got like 8 feet away from the theater, and she turned to me and she said, "You know that movie's true. That's how you men are." And I had enough of that shit. So I told her where to go with that. And we got into a rolling argument, which was eventually broken up by a mutual acquaintance. And I was just kind of aloof, you know. I would have a couple more episodes with this chick before she actually, thankfully, God stepped in to get this chick out of my spear. And that, well, I'll post something about that another time. You know, I'll make another episode about that. But I was really angry at Terry McMillan and the people that produced that movie because it didn't have anything positive to say about black men. And then later on, Terry McMillan married a guy, a strange looking guy. If you just look at the guy, there's something off about him. But it later turned out the guy was gay. But hilariously enough, this guy had inspired her to write a book called How Stella Got Her Groove Back, another Angela Bassett barn burner, you know, in the movie adaptation, starring Taye Diggs. It was his premiere in Hollywood. You know, it's just bullshit. It was another black woman exodus to find a bigger, better deal than their actual male counterparts. You know, it's anything to denigrate a brother. And I thought that was shit. You know, I just think it's shit. It's the beginning or part of parcel of the campaign to just destroy our image. And, you know, just finding out later that this woman had actually based that book on the experience she had. She was 40 years old and she met this 20-year-old guy in Jamaica and she married him. She eventually married him. He was 20 and it turned out he was gay. This guy was gay. Once I found out he was gay, I just started laughing because when I went and looked at his picture, I was like, that's what it is. Because I was living in Los Angeles. I was working in West Hollywood. It's one of the gayest places outside of San Francisco on the West Coast. And you know, it just dawned on me. It's like, yeah, that's what's wrong with this guy because he had a weird look on his face, you know, that I couldn't place right off the bat. But it was familiar to me because I worked over in the West LA. I ain't disparaging any alphabet community people, but you know, the look on that brother's face, and then finding out like this woman who had put out all this destructive rhetoric. You know, you have the right to create what you want as an artist, but you can't. You know, you can't control how people react to it. And I feel like it's just propaganda. It's just an anti-black male propaganda. And I think it's gender racism. I'm just tired of it and shit, but it's fucking hilarious, man. She ended up suing this guy for $40 million for being embarrassed. And then later on, they seem to have patched things up doing a Where Are They Now episode with Oprah Winfrey. And then, you know, I think back in hindsight, it just didn't look good for whatever they were trying to do, that agenda. So I guess Oprah had to stand in. You know, she had to, you know, the great God mammy had to step in and made both of them kiss her ring and shit. She made them reconcile. I know she had something to do with that because she always putting her fat nose in other people's business and shit. And then, just to come out, find out later the most irrational things, women were following this like this was like their Star Wars for sisters. And they were following this lady, and she had fucked up and married a gay dude. Sisters always hanging out with gay dudes. A lot of sisters hang out with these gay brothers. And they supposed to have like this acute gaydar, but she didn't know. So I figured she went over there, and this is my theory. She went to Jamaica, found herself a cabana boy who was half her age. He was a prostitute, more likely. So he gave her the D. She probably liked it. So she cut him a deal. She made him a deal she made him a deal he couldn't, refuse, whether she knew he was gay or not. And, legitimized him. She got herself a trophy boy, and she brought him back to Hollywood, and he's already gay. He's probably, and there's several pictures of him with guys. He seems to prefer bald Caucasian, middle-aged men. And, she brought this guy back and legitimized him. A lot of male stars have done, especially a lot of rappers. They've got their jump offs, and then they end up with like a reality show. So it's no big deal. It's just a gender reversal of it. And then she got mad about it. And, they settled out of court. She sued him for $40 million, but they settled out of court. And I think the guy had like a couple of little TV gigs too on the side, besides appearing on Oprah Winfrey's show. So everything worked out and shit, except she got embarrassed. And then she still played it off because when they asked her man-like pride, her unyielding pride, no lack of humility. This woman that wrote all these anti-male novels, she said that she would still marry that guy if she knew what the deal was back in the day. That's what she put out to the public. I don't believe it. And I take issue with the fact that she was actually suing that guy that she brought here to the States from Jamaica. She brought him here from his home. And once everything was out in the open, she was suing him. Her lawyer had written in the brief that this guy, by hiding his lifestyle, had put her in danger of HIV. This is another negative stereotype they attributed to black people and by the proxy, men at large, black men. Because once the jig was up, they tried to pull the black man tree, and they tried to pull the black bag on him. The same shit they did on Cosby, where he turned into they just assign an aspect to you. So he got his N-word moment, whether he cared or not. I don't think he cared because he was already banging all these old rich white dudes in Hollywood. So he didn't care. Selling his ass. I said it. No filter. So Oprah had to come in and fix that shit because that was messing up her program, her own fucked up program to meddle in our community on the behalf of, the outside majority. So Terry McMillan, I laughed my ass off. I don't know what she's doing today, but she's supposedly worth somewhere north of $40 million. So she ain't hurting for nothing. And she had money back in that day. She worked hard for her success, but it was probably easier to find a publisher once they knew what she was writing. And she wasn't doing nothing of any merit as far as I'm concerned. She's writing like a Pulp Fiction crap that was anti-black male rhetoric. Terry McMillan, congratulations on your career and everything. But personally, as a black male, a straight black man with two sons, fuck you.
This message has been paid for by the Dusties. Yes, the niggas you love to hate.